They didn't see a warrior. They saw ink, too much of it, spread everywhere. Uneven. Unsettling. So they laughed, murmured, circled her with their eyes like predators testing movement beneath the surface. One of them sneered, "What's with all the tattoos, darling? You covering up something or just trying to forget it?" They had no idea what they were brushing against, because those markings weren't style. They were history. A ledger of loss, of mistakes, of endurance. And by the time they learned who she was, what she'd lived through, what she'd commanded, what those symbols had etched into her flesh, it was far too late to pull the words back. Before we reveal the instant, the entire room froze and the truth behind the child's sketch. One soldier laughed. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Hit like if you respect quiet resilience. Subscribe and tap the bell so you don't miss stories like this. Because today's reminder is simple. Respect isn't demanded by volume. It's earned by the weight you carry in silence. The training facility was unimpressive at first glance. Beige concrete walls, humming fluorescent lights, a faded American flag pinned between two smudged whiteboards. But inside it was crowded. 40 attendees, Marines, Raiders, Rangers, Junior SEALs, even a handful of Air Force controllers, packed shoulder to shoulder on metal benches. All mid-20s, sculpted by iron and energy drinks. The kind of men who crushed fitness tests without trying and made sure everyone knew it. They'd been called in for a joint operations seminar, a cross-branch survival course run by someone with field experience, whatever that meant. The lead instructors were late, and the room had drifted into casual jokes, quiet challenges, and subtle one-upmanship. That's when Cole noticed her. She sat in the middle, 2 rows ahead. Small build, solid shoulders, no visible rank, plain black PT shirt. She hadn't said a word since arriving. Her head was slightly bowed as she tightened one bootlace with slow precision. Calm, controlled, but it was the tattoos that drew attention. They wrapped both arms like climbing roots. Bold lines, fractured shapes, faded symbols from unfamiliar places, star maps, raw markings that looked scorched rather than drawn. No symmetry, no decoration, just too many. Rough, intentional, uncomfortable. Cole nudged the guy beside him and grinned. "Looks like someone attacked her with a marker." A snicker followed. "What is she, a walking mural?" Someone muttered. Cole leaned forward, unable to resist. He reached across the bench line and tapped her shoulder. "Hey, sweetheart," he said, projecting just enough to hush the room. "What's with all the ink? Run out of skin or running from something?" Laughter rolled through the benches. Heads turned, she stopped, didn't fully face him, just lifted her chin slightly and replied, steady as stone, "You don't understand what you're looking at." Cole scoffed. "Pretty sure I know bad ink when I see it." This time the laughter didn't come, not immediately. Something about the way she finally glanced at him, brief, measured, felt wrong, not angry, not embarrassed, just perfectly still. She tugged her sleeve down a little, covering some of the heavy lines, not like she was hiding them, but like someone securing a weapon. The room shifted, subtly. The air tightened. The door remained closed. No instructors, no authority, just a pack misreading the moment. Cole leaned back, satisfied, assuming the exchange was over. He thought he'd won. Others weren't convinced. She remained seated, hands flat on her thighs, eyes forward. Then the door opened. It creaked wide, and a sharp, commanding voice cut through the room. "On your feet." The noise vanished. Benches clattered as boots struck the floor in perfect unison. A Marine gunnery sergeant entered the room carrying a clipboard, his stride heavy with the weight of someone who had lowered more coffins than these recruits had ever known names. He didn't introduce himself. "This isn't a pep rally," he said evenly. "This isn't a TED talk. This is an evaluation. You're not here to be entertained. You're here to learn." He walked the length of the benches, eyes sweeping faces the way someone counts weapons before kicking a door. 3 drills, he continued. 1 physical, 1 mental. 1 tactical, you'll move fast, you'll stay silent, you won't ask questions. He stopped, scanned the group again, then pointed abruptly. "You, step forward." The woman rose, no pause, no strain, just a smooth, controlled motion. She moved ahead with clinical precision, her boots made no sound. Cole smirked behind her. "Watch her break," he whispered. The gunnery sergeant guided her to the far corner where a 180-pound weighted dummy lay face down on the mat. "Drag it to the wall. Full kit," he said, nodding at the gear stacked nearby. She didn't react. No showboating, no theatrics, just quick hands tightening straps, locking buckles, setting rigging. Then she dropped low, secured the harness, and began to pull. There was no burst of brute force, no gritted teeth, only efficient, deliberate motion. Heel to heel, step by step, center of gravity low, expression blank. She hit the wall in half the time of the last recruit. No applause, no murmurs. "Reset," the gunny snapped. Next, he placed a headset over her ears and gestured to a digital panel mounted on the wall. White noise exploded, sirens, engines, chaos, while a timer began its countdown. The screen filled with a rotating grid, patterns, memory chains, logic sequences. She didn't stall. Where others froze or panicked, she stayed locked in, fingers moving with steady rhythm, eyes never leaving the display. When the timer hit 90 seconds, the panel flashed green. Complete. Cole leaned forward, his smile gone. "Final drill," the gunnery sergeant said. He tapped a tablet and drone footage filled the monitor, an overhead view of a mock village. "Find the entry flaw, 60 seconds. She stayed silent for 5, then spoke. "Northwest approach, overgrown path, light tire compression. Inconsistent spacing, that's not a patrol, it's a flanking element. The main entrances are a diversion." The gunny studied her, then gave a slow nod. No praise, no reaction. She returned to her seat without meeting anyone's eyes. Cole leaned toward his partner. "She thinks she's special operations or something." Without turning, she replied, "I don't think. I know what I've done." The gunnery sergeant paused mid-note, just briefly, then continued. But no one in the room forgot the look that crossed his face. Breaks at training facilities are never truly breaks. They're observation windows, moments when posture reveals more than rank, when the real hierarchy shows in how you rest instead of how you stand. The recruits spilled into the side area beyond the main hall, a stretch of gravel and metal bleachers under a sagging, sun-bleached awning. Canteens side open. Gloves were peeled away. Laughter slipped back into the group like a cold breeze under a door. She stayed by herself. No one ordered it. She simply didn't drift toward a circle, didn't linger for approval. She crouched beside her rucksack, rewrapping the gauze on her palms from the drag drill. Her fingers worked with the same clean efficiency, precise, deliberate, as if every movement had been rehearsed enough to leave no waste. Mason noticed her from across the gravel. Still smarting from being shown up, still unable to reconcile what he'd witnessed, he chose to press harder. A recruit's ego rarely backs down quietly. He bumped shoulders with 2 friends, Rios and Calder, then walked over. They positioned themselves loosely, like people killing time at a stop, not hemming her in. Mason dropped onto the bench beside her. "So," he said lightly, a grin in his voice, "those tattoos, what are they? Bad choices or messy breakups?" She didn't lift her head. "None of your concern." Rios leaned against the rail behind her. "Hey, every tattoo's got a story, right? Let us hear one," Calder snorted. "Or maybe she's just pretending. No unit marks, no branch, just random lines." She kept wrapping her hand. The quiet dragged on. Mason tilted his head toward her forearm, toward the sharp, uneven symbols etched beneath her elbow. "This one," he said, tapping it with 2 fingers, "looks like a kid went wild with a crayon." Her response was quicker than any of them expected. She didn't swing, didn't threaten. She simply closed her hand around his wrist, firm, unmoving, cold as iron. Not a display, just a boundary drawn clean and final. "Don't touch me," she said. Mason went still. Her grip held for only a heartbeat. Then she let go as if nothing had happened and returned to her wrap. The atmosphere shifted. Calder gave a shaky laugh. "She's got some fire." No one joined in. There was no tension in her stance, no warning in her eyes. Somehow that made it worse. Before it could escalate, the heavy inner door groaned open. "Back inside," snapped the gunnery sergeant. The 3 men peeled away, feigning ease. Mason lingered a second longer, casting one last look as she stood and slung her pack over a shoulder. He thought he'd unsettled her. He failed to recognize the stillness for what it was, not fear, not surrender. Discipline. The kind you earn, not the kind you're taught. The kind that waits for the right moment. The recruits streamed back into the hall with less swagger than before. Water bottles hissed. Boots scraped the floor. Some complained about the heat. Others stared forward, waiting, but not her. She was already seated. Same place. Same posture. Same unreadable expression. Then the door opened again. This time it wasn't a sergeant. It was a man in pressed service khakis, mid-50s, silver buzz cut, hard jaw. The sort of presence that makes a room straighten without realizing why. He stepped inside with a calm that didn't need to announce itself. Commander Rourke waved away the reflexive snap to attention. "Carry on," he said. The recruit remained seated, but his posture sharpened, spine straight, eyes awake. Even Dalton pulled his knees together. Rourke didn't speak at once. He surveyed the room with slow certainty, as if every file and service number was already etched into his mind. His gaze drifted across each row, then paused on her. A brief shift, almost imperceptible, crossed his face. Not surprise. Recognition. He inclined his head in a small, deliberate nod. Then he faced the class again. "Today isn't about maneuvers," he said. "It's not about routines." He let the words hang. "It's about what's left when everything collapses, when your radios die, your navigation is useless, and your support is miles away with no line to you." He paused. "This session is about endurance, psychological, operational, ethical." His eyes flicked back toward her before he stepped aside. "You'll be instructed by someone who didn't study this in a handbook. She wrote it." The room went still. He turned to her fully. "Chief Warrant Officer Lena Voss, retired." The air seemed to drain from the space. She rose unhurried, grounded, untheatrical, simply there. Dalton's jaw set, his gut tightening with something unfamiliar. Not shame yet, just a slow discomfort. A truth forming, cold and inevitable. Cade dipped his chin to the commander, who returned the gesture with near reverence. Rourke continued, voice steady as the class remained frozen. "Chief Voss served 18 years in Maritime Special Operations, Strike Unit Delta, Combined Task Forces. She operated with Task Force Cobalt's Advance Recon and Evasion Cell." He allowed a beat. "She was cited for extraordinary bravery during Operation Iron Dune. She's trained operators from Ranger Battalion to the Royal SBS. She is one of the few Tier C survival instructors certified under live-fire combat standards." Dalton's gaze slipped to her forearm, the exact marking he'd laughed at. The careless sketch. Now it looked different. He didn't understand it yet, but he knew with certainty that he'd misjudged everything. Voss faced the room. Her voice was calm, measured, immovable. "We'll start." Lena didn't pace when she taught. She didn't gesture at displays or elevate her tone. She stood at the room's center, arms crossed, letting the quiet press in and do the work. No one looked away. Dalton hadn't shifted since she spoke her name. There was no space left for humor, only the creeping warmth of awareness rising up his neck like a burn. He kept his eyes down, but the image stayed with him. The faded, uneven black lines on her forearm, the one he'd touched, the one he dismissed as juvenile. Voss moved slowly toward his row, not confrontational, just instructive. She lifted her arms slightly, exposing the mark. Time had blurred the edges, the lines bent like a half-remembered route drawn by a hand that wouldn't stop shaking. "You said this one was ugly," she said, voice low, even. "You weren't wrong." Dalton looked up. It was sketched in ash and blood, carved with a utility blade on the third day of a hostage extraction in a fishing village along the southern Luzon coast. "We inserted under monsoon cover. Saltwater killed our radios. Navigation was gone. Signals were dead. The village scout handed us a map he'd sketched himself, straight from memory. He said the routes would move once the weather broke. His hands shook so violently the charcoal wobbled across the page. She hesitated. We lost him within the first 60 minutes. Indirect fire erased half the hillside. After that, all I had were my boots and what I'd memorized from that scrap of paper. I destroyed the original so no one could trace it back to his family, but I didn't forget it. She brushed her fingers lightly across her forearm, so I redrew it. Every split, every dead end, every canal swollen past its banks. I traced it onto my skin so I wouldn't forget where we'd already crossed, so I wouldn't lead my people in circles. We moved without lights. knee-deep sludge, pausing in channels that reeked of fuel and iron. She lowered her arm. And we brought them out, all 3 captives. One was wounded but breathing. We dragged them through a flooded field under scattered fire, and no one on my team was killed. Rowan stared down at the table. Calder scanned the room. No judgment, no pride, just truth. That ugly ink saved 6 lives that night, she said. You can keep your roaring animals and patriotic sleeves. I'll take the crooked lines drawn by people desperate to survive. The room fell quiet. Not reverent yet, just heavy in the way only something real can be. She turned and returned to the front, folding her arms once more. The projector clicked on behind her, but nobody turned. They were still watching her. The slide advanced, unnoticed. Their focus drifted back to her arms, to markings that weren't meant to impress. Ilara didn't waste words. Let's talk about fallback structure, she said. Not the version you rehearse, the version you invent when the map is gone and the plan is ash. She reached back to adjust the screen, and that's when they noticed it. Just beneath the edge of her collar, above the left shoulder blade, a faint scatter of symbols in dull brown-black, rough, angular, nearly erased by time. The atmosphere shifted again. She sensed it, saw where their eyes went, and spoke without turning. That one, she said, was never supposed to be visible. Her hand lifted and rested against it, like memory embedded in flesh. Kurdistan, 2014. The room didn't move. We were assigned overwatch and recovery after an extraction collapsed. Our position was hit 2 hours before contact. The Humvee rolled into a dry ravine. I wrenched my shoulder, pulling myself free. She kept her gaze forward, not at the screen, but somewhere far older. We fought for 19 hours. No air cover, no live feed, just rooftops and movement in the dark. My radio was gone. Everyone else had already fallen back to the ridge. They assumed we were dead. She inhaled, controlled. I carried a teammate 5 miles across broken ground. He took a round through the leg, faded in and out the entire way. I used his blood to mark fallback points on my gear. When I reached the midpoint ridge, I took a blade and carved the same pattern into my skin. She touched her shoulder again. That's what you're seeing. Every shape is a grid, a turn, a tree, a body. Mateo, one of Rowan's friends, swallowed hard. The confidence drained out of him like air from a split tire. Ilara went on, steady. I didn't carve those marks to honor anyone. I carved them so I'd never forget where I lost command, where I stabilized, where I failed, where I crawled. The silence afterward wasn't awkward. It was different. A pause caused by impact, not discomfort. Then she added, almost under her breath, ink isn't decoration. Their routes, their admissions, the things that never make it into an official log. She turned back toward the monitor, but the simulation had lost its audience. No one was watching it anymore. Their attention had shifted to the dark lines barely concealed beneath the edge of her uniform collar. And for the first time since she entered that room, not a single person was counting how many markings she wore. They were thinking about how little they actually understood. Colonel Rourke stepped forward again, aware that something had changed, but choosing not to interrupt it. She won't say this herself, he said, calm and steady. So I will. Elena didn't respond. She moved to the side now, arms folded once more, allowing the quiet to do the work for her. Rourke continued. Captain Vale once went 3 full days without sleep or food during an extraction operation in the Mojave. Not a drill, not a controlled scenario, live asset recovery. She did it on a fractured ankle in 115-degree heat. He walked slowly across the front of the room, letting every sentence settle before the next followed. She led 3 civilians barefoot through a mined corridor scattered with glass. One was bleeding out. She never raised her voice, never rushed them. She just kept moving. Somewhere behind Carter, a pen slipped from a desk and cracked against the floor. No one bent to retrieve it. Rourke turned back toward her, then addressed the room again. She's trained special operations candidates twice her size, veterans with more deployments than you can count. Marines who thought pain was something they already understood, and she did it without shouting, without intimidation, just presence. Carter didn't look up. Neither did Alvarez, Reed, or any of the trainees who had laughed earlier. The atmosphere had shifted, not into fear, not into awe. just the recalibration that happens when people realize the version they'd built in their heads was wrong. Alina hadn't bragged. She hadn't demanded respect. She didn't have to. Her restraint carried more authority than any display of rank or force ever could. She scanned the room, measured and unhurried. "I'm not here to impress you," she said. "I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to teach you how to survive when your strength gives out." Her voice never rose. She didn't emphasize it. She stated it the way one states weather. "You'll reach that point. Maybe not today. Maybe not this year, but it will happen. And when it does, your muscles won't save you. Your gear won't save you. The only thing that will matter is whether your mind and your will stay upright when everything else collapses. No drama. No performance." She turned back to the projector. "The next phase," she said, "is psychological breakdown. We'll start with stress erosion at hour 36. No one moved, no one blinked. They listened. And the woman with too much ink, no one noticed the markings anymore. They only felt the weight beneath them. The session ran another 40 minutes. No one checked the time. Not once when it ended, the trainees didn't bolt for the exit like they usually did. No hallway rush, no careless jokes. Just the quiet scrape of chairs and subtle shifts in posture, as if they were standing near something delicate they didn't want to disturb. Alina packed her equipment without a word. A worn duffel, a notebook, nothing extra. She moved with the same controlled precision she carried through every moment of instruction. Then a voice came from behind her. "Captain Vale." She turned. Carter stood there, shoulders squared, jaw tight, but his voice was different now, not arrogance, not embarrassment. Just the heaviness of someone who had finally seen the distance between what they believed they knew and what was real. "I'm sorry," he said. "I read you wrong." Ree regarded him for a moment, not sharply, just with care. "You judged the surface," she replied evenly, "not the frame beneath it." He dipped his head, arms loose at his sides, fingers betraying a nervous twitch. "I didn't know who you were." "That's exactly it," she said. "You never asked." Jack stood off to one side, observing. Others hovered near the doorway, busying themselves with nothing in particular, listening all the same. "I wasn't trying to," Colton began, but she lifted a hand and stopped him, gentle but final. "You don't need to justify it," she said. "You're young, you're capable." "You think you've already seen enough of the world," he swallowed. Hard. "But here's the truth," she continued. "This line of work doesn't care how quick you are, how smooth you talk, or how spotless your file looks. It cares about what you do when all that's left is choice and instinct." She stepped closer, just once, near enough that her words carried without being raised. "And the second you stop respecting the people beside you, the second you decide the loudest voice equals the strongest one, you endanger someone, a partner, a bystander, maybe yourself." Colton said nothing. He couldn't. She held his gaze anyway. "You'll figure it out or you won't," she said. "But if you plan on walking into rooms like this again, start paying attention to what people bear, not what they perform." Then she passed him, not icy, not withdrawn, just finished. He half turned as she went by, as if searching for something else to say. He found nothing. There was nothing left. And somehow that made the lesson strike deeper. Most of the trainees had filtered out. A few lingered near the door, murmuring quietly or staring at their boots. What had begun as a routine cross-branch briefing had shifted into something else entirely, something they couldn't name yet. Ree was nearly at the exit when a careful, almost timid voice rose from the center row. "Chief." She paused and turned slightly. It was one of the youngest there, a naval cadet barely past the academy, face still soft beneath a fresh buzz cut. He kept his eyes lowered, but his voice was steady. "Why?" he asked. "All of them?" The room went still. Even those halfway through the door stopped. Ree exhaled and glanced down at her forearms. Old markings. Blurred edges. Shapes softened by years and weather. She walked back to the front. No tension, no performance, just boots on concrete and the tired hum of the ancient air unit overhead. When she spoke, it was barely louder than breath. "Because memory fades," she said. "Marks don't." No one moved. She looked around, not at one face, but at all of them. All the strength, all the youth, all the pride still malleable enough to change. "Some of these remind me where I survived," she went on. "Some where I failed, and some—" Her voice tightened, not with weakness but weight. Keep those I lost close. There was no pause for effect, no shaking hands, just honesty. She rolled her sleeve down slowly, hiding most of the chaos again. The lines disappeared beneath the fabric like smoke sinking back into air. "You won't get it today," she said. "You're not meant to, you're still intact, still untouched, still lucky." She reached for her duffel. But one day, when the plan collapses, when your strength gives out, when the world stops caring, you'll look at your arms. Maybe they'll still be clean. Maybe they won't. She swung the bag over her shoulder. But either way, you'll understand what you carry, and why I chose to write mine where I couldn't forget. Then she turned and walked into the light spilling through the glass-lined hall. No salute, no farewell. Just the quiet sound of boots on tile. No one chased after her. No one said a word, not right away. They only watched the markings fade into the light slicing through the room and wondered how many truths they'd never be shown. The hall cleared out slowly, not like a routine dismissal, but like the quiet drift after a memorial. Soft footsteps, uneven pauses, heavy thoughts. Cole remained where he was, elbows planted on his thighs, hands hanging loose as if he'd just let go of something valuable and couldn't remember where it fell. His gaze stayed fixed on the spot where Lyrian had stood moments before. There was nothing there to see, yet it felt crowded. A residue. A fact, a burden. He didn't know how to carry it, boots scraped nearby. It was Rook. He dropped onto the bench beside Cole with a long, tired breath. They sat without speaking, watching the final trainees file out. Then Rook broke the quiet. "You planning to say sorry again tomorrow?" Cole didn't lift his head. "Yeah," he said under his breath. "Yeah, I am." He rubbed the back of his neck and exhaled unsteadily. "I figured she was just some staff plant," he said low. "You know, there to check a box." Rook said nothing. He didn't have to. "I saw ink," Cole went on. "That's all." Didn't even think to ask what it meant. Rook gave a single nod. "We all did." Cole finally looked up. But when she talked about that backup route, the blood, the signs, the map she etched into herself, he shook his head. That wasn't decoration, that was survival. Rook leaned forward, forearms on his legs. "Ever meet someone who makes you feel like you didn't earn the boots on your feet?" Cole let out a dry chuckle. "Just did." Silence returned, not because there was nothing left, but because whatever followed wouldn't be a show. No jokes left to mask the discomfort, no bravado to pump themselves back up, just acceptance. Cole rose slowly, looping his canteen over his shoulder. "Next time she's teaching," he said, "I'm taking the front seat." Rook lifted a brow. "Thought you hated briefings?" "I do," Cole replied. "But I've never seen someone change the room without ever raising their voice." He paused by the door and glanced back once more at the empty space. The same bench, the same scuffed floor, the same dull concrete. Only now he recognized what he'd overlooked. "Too many marks," he muttered. "God. I had no clue." Then he left, quieter than when he arrived. The boots didn't change, but the person wearing them did. How many of your scars carry stories no one else can read? And have you ever judged someone before knowing their truth? Share your thoughts below, we read them all. If you believe in quiet strength, tap like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss tomorrow's story. Pass this along to someone who still thinks first impressions tell the whole tale. Check out the videos appearing on your screen now. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, with a brand new story. Stay alert, stay rooted.